week we discussed Contra Costa County. This week we're going to discuss Alameda County disclosures. It is a mandatory form if you have a listing in Alameda County or if you have a transaction in Alameda County. Okay? All right, quiet please. Because the provisions are very similar with Contra Costa County, so I will not repeat everything that is in Contra Costa if it appears on this form. I will only discuss things that are unique to Alameda County. Okay? So if you see me skipping all those disclosures concerning things that are common to Contra Costa and Alameda, is because I've already reviewed Contra Costa and I don't want to waste time talking about it again. So if you don't know what those things are, you can always go back to watch the video for Contra Costa County. So my recommendation is you should watch the video for Contra Costa County before you watch the video for Alameda County. Okay? All right, I'm going to skip a lot because they are common to Contra Costa County as well. That's why they're being skipped. Earlier, somebody asked me about unpermitted rooms. There are always going to be unpermitted rooms in the marketplace. So does the fact that your property have unpermitted rooms means that you can't sell the property? No, you can still sell your property. And if you are asked by a buyer, what do I need to fear if it's unpermitted? Generally speaking, all that means is you're taking a chance that there might be certain square footage within the property that is not permitted. So if somebody files a complaint against you, the government would have to send an inspector to the property and they will have to cite you for it. When you're cited for unpermitted room, you have several options. One is you can restore it as though the addition never happened, or you can apply to legalize it. Most people will just apply to legalize it. It doesn't mean you can always legalize it, but most cases you can legalize it.
When you legalize, do they have to break the walls to see the wiring, plumbing?
Yes, they have to check out, because now you have to do the drawings, because the drawing will show where the plumbing is and where the electrical lines are. Okay. And most of this stuff are things we already covered in Contra Costa, so I'll skip them altogether and just focus on things that were not covered in the other form. County and city advisories. These will be unique to Alameda County, so we'll start from here. Noise from transportation systems. You know, there's going to be noise that come from the flight patterns. So it's a standard disclosure. If the buyer wants to know more about the situation, you know, for example, in Livermore, there's a Livermore airport. In fact, when I first came to California, Livermore Airport was one of the airports I was thinking about landing on a regular basis. But there is an airport in Livermore. And then there's also an airport in Hayward. I don't know where Little Hands Airport is. Apparently, it's in San Ramon. And then, of course, you have the Oakland International Airport. These are all the airports. And there'll be flight pattern going to these airports. And then there are also some commuter and freight rail lines, including but not limited to BART. As you know, BART will go to, where does BART run? It runs through Oakland. But I don't think BART goes to all the way to Dublin. I think it ends at Dublin. I don't think it goes further to Livermore.
Pleasanton.
Dublin is after Pleasanton, right? You have to pass Pleasanton before you reach Dublin. Okay, so there are some light rails that the consumer needs to be aware of. Okay, San Francisco Bay regulations. San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission is charged with the responsibility of restoring bay wetlands and marshes, preventing wetlands and mud flats from being filled, and supporting the continuing and productive use of salt ponds. Basically, this one talks about preservation of the wetlands and the marshes. Wetlands are places where you see there's a lot of, if you don't know what wetlands are, you go around the San Francisco Bay Area, you see there's a lot of plants in the water. You know, that's where the wetlands are. Flood benefit assessment. Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District levies benefit assessments to help finance flood control operations. These assessments are proportionate to the runoff from each parcel of land. The program applies to all of Alameda County with the exception of the cities of Albany, Berkeley, Alameda, Pittman, and the Zone 7 area east of the hills. Basically, this is letting the buyer know that there is a governmental agency known as the Alameda County Flood Control, and they have the power to impose special assessment on the individual homeowner based on the amount of runoff. Runoff is just rainwater that falls onto the property that eventually escapes from the property. That we call that runoff. Okay, and how much assessment you pay will depend on, your proportionate share of the runoff. Spark arresters. As of the date of this advisory, the cities of Dublin and Pleasanton have enacted ordinances requiring that properties with fireplaces be fitted with spark arresters at the time of a sale. So if you're buying or selling in Dublin and Pleasanton, you need to know of such requirement. Basically, if there is a fireplace, they need to make sure for safety reasons that the fireplaces must be fitted with spark arresters so that it doesn't catch fire. Okay? Dublin also requires that the seller deliver to buyer a written statement indicating that the seller is in compliance with the ordinance. So if you're the listing agent for a property in Dublin, you need to be aware that there is a form that you have to fill out or have your seller fill out and sign that the property is in compliance with the spark arrestor code. All right. Rental property issues. Now, this is talking about Alameda, Berkeley, Fremont, Hayward, Oakland, and Union City. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities have different form of rent and eviction control. The most significant one is Oakland and Berkeley. The rest you don't hear so much about them. But Oakland and Berkeley definitely have very strict rent and eviction control. The rest, like Alameda, Fremont, Hayward, and Union City, most likely all they have is just the rent control, probably no eviction controls. Okay, but you need to read up the exact law to be sure. Alameda has rent stabilization and eviction limitation ordinance. So if you want to know more about rent control in Alameda, there is a link that you can click and go to and read more about it. Okay. Some cities such as Fremont and San Leandro have rent review and landlord-tenant mediation programs. Now, what this means is that if you get into a dispute situation with your tenant in the city of Fremont or San Leandro, even though these two cities probably don't have any eviction control, However, if you raise your rent too much for any of the properties for these two cities, the tenant can actually request a rent review. Okay? And if you still have a dispute with your tenant, you can make use of the mediation service. They do have mediation program that you can participate if you have issues with your tenants for either Fremont or San Leandro. Other cities are considering or may in the future enact such ordinances. Basically, even in some cities, they don't have rent control yet, but they are moving toward having rent control and eviction control. Okay? Like Haywood. Residential, now if you look at Haywood here, it talks about Haywood. Cedar Haywood also has a residential rental inspection program, which may apply to some properties. Buyers should investigate that issue during their investigation inspection contingency period. So if you have a buyer who is buying a rental property in Hayward, you need to find out if there's any rental inspection program in the city, such that you may be required to have the property inspected if it is a rental property before close of escrow. Residential rental unit annual fee, some cities, including but not limited to Alameda, Albany, Berkeley, Oakland, El Cerrito, and Emeryville, charge landlords a residential rental unit annual business tax license fee. So this is just additional expense you need to be aware of, okay, if you're buying in these cities. County and other cities may enact comparable or comparable requirements. HVAC ducting. The California Energy Conversion Commission issued new duct sealing requirements in 2005. Depending upon the certain conditions and property location, if a central AC or furnace was installed or replaced after 2005 October 1st, the ducts must be tested for leakage. So that's a requirement. If the ducts leak 15% or more, then repairs must be made to seal the duct. So this one here, additional testing may then be required to verify the work was done properly. It is strongly recommended that all of this work must be done by a licensed contractor. I don't know exactly what city this one applies to. I will look it up, I'll check it, and I will let you know. Apparently, it seems like county-wide. This has to do with the HVAC ducting. And this one is saying, only a contractor who has specialized knowledge regarding HVAC systems can determine whether or not the ducts must be sealed. While portions of the Alameda are exempt from this requirement, only a review of the official map of the California Energy Commission can determine whether a particular property is exempt. So if you want to find out if a property is exempt from this requirement, click this link right here, okay? That will help you figure out if that requirement must be fulfilled for the property that you are dealing with. Sewer line inspection and compliance. We know that in some cities they have the private sewer lateral inspection and testing. Private sewer lateral inspection and testing involves only the section from the building to the public sewer main that is usually in the street. So, if you have a property that requires a private sewer lateral, testing must be done, like in Berkeley. We know we have that requirement in Berkeley. Inspections to and repairs of the PSL do not cover other sewer lines in or under the properties which are not part of the PSL itself. Usually, when you open up escrow, many escrow companies already know about this sewer lateral requirement. They will remind you to get it done. So if you have a property here, that requires that work to be done, I recommend you do it soon. Don't wait until before close of escrow. East Bay Municipal Utility District wastewater control and requires property owners in certain areas of the EBMUD wastewater service area to obtain a compliance certificate that allows their PSLs, that shows their PSLs are without defects and have proper connection. Okay, just it has to do with the ordinance. So make sure that you check with that particular city. Now it says here, these are the city involved. These PSL requirements only affect properties in the EBMUD wastewater service area in the city of Alameda, cities of Emeryville, Oakland, Pittman, and the STEGE sanitary district communities of El Cerrito, Kensington, and Richmond Annex. The cities of Albany and Berkeley also have local PSL private ordinances already in effect. So if you are dealing with properties in any of these cities, be aware of the sewer lateral certificate requirement. For vacant land within EBMUD with no sewer lateral, the buyer and the seller must still file for an exemption certificate. So even if there is no property on the building on the property, you still have to apply for a exemption certificate. Okay. However, for vacant land that has an old sewer lateral, such as a fire lot in the Oakland Hills, at point of sale, the buyer would need to file for the 180-day compliance extension. Just another requirement. Buyer would then need to make the decision as to how soon they will be building on the property. The building immediately, compliance may be delayed as part of the building and permit process. If not building immediately, buyer will need to abandon or disconnect the sewer lateral from the main and obtain a certificate of abandonment from EBMUD. So if you're within one of these cities that I mentioned above, and it's a vacant land, even for vacant land, you need an exemption certificate. Sometimes vacant land may have abandoned sewer lateral that you have to get a certificate of abandonment for. An abandoned sewer lateral means it's a sewer lateral that you no longer use, but it's still underneath the surface. Condominiums and CIDs deferred. For the cities, Alameda, Albany, El Cerrito, Emeryville, Kensington, Oakland, Pittman, and Richmond Annex, condominiums and other common interest developments with an HOA are generally excluded from bringing a PSL into compliance, whether individual or shared lateral. Well, if it's a condominium, we don't have to worry about sewer lateral. That's what this is saying. Until July 12, 2021. But only if the HOA is legally responsible for the maintaining the sewer lateral. So at least you don't have to worry until 2021. Okay. Real estate developer and rehabilitation of real estate. Every person in Alameda County engaged in the business of developing or rehabbing and selling real property in which said person has equity, interest, or title, and not specifically taxed by section whatever, shall pay a business tax of $1.25 for each $1,000 permit value for building permit obtained for work engaged in sites within the unincorporated area of the county. This is talking about if you ever have a client who is buying a land within the county to develop, then they may need to pay for this particular special tax. Sidewalk repair program. This program only applies to single-family residential units in the following communities within county planning area. Ashland, Castro Valley, Fairmont, Cherryland, unincorporated Hayward, Fairview, and San Lorenzo, Royal Sunset. Funded through Measure B, this program will reimburse 50% of the sidewalk repair cost per property up to a maximum of $750 for sidewalk-related repairs to the frontage of a single-family dwelling. So if you are a homeowner in any of this property, you actually get some assistance from the government to help you pay for the repair of the sidewalk. Okay, up to a maximum of $750. Homeowners residing in San Lorenzo may be eligible for additional assistance. Okay. Alameda, so the above were all county requirements. Now we're going into the city requirements. Okay. Secondhand smoke ordinance, this one is talking about you cannot be smoking too close to the residence. The city of Alameda limits exposure to secondhand smoke in places of employment, public places, and multi-unit housing, defined as 2 or more units. Smoking is prohibited inside the units of all rental and common interest complexes, condos, co-ops, PUD. So they don't allow smoking inside the condominium complex, and they don't allow smoking inside of the rental units. Buildings constructed prior to 1942 and or designated historical sites. You know, sometimes in some of these older cities, there may be some buildings that are so old that they might be designated as historical site. Now, if they're designated as historical site, you need to know what are the requirements or any restrictions on the use of the property. So if it's prior to 1942, and if it's within the city of Alameda, it may not be demolished or removed without the approval of the historical advisory board. So if you have a client that's buying a historical building in Alameda, make sure you let them know that, you know, they need approval from the historical advisory board before they can demolish the building. Okay? Soft-story ordinance, multi-unit residential apartment and condominium buildings with 5 or more residential units containing a soft, weak, or open front ground floor may be designated as potentially hazardous in the event of an earthquake. City of Alameda has identified and maintains a list of such properties. Buyers should contact the City of Alameda Community Development Department to determine if the property is on the soft story list and what further action is required. So basically, if you have a property that's on the soft story list, it does require certain earthquake remedial measures, which means that it may require earthquake reinforcement. All right, Bay Farm Island Reclamation District. Homes located in Harbor Bay Isle may have fees assessed by the City of Alameda maintenance. You know, just special fees if your property is located in this Harbor Bay. Leased land. You know, in Alameda, there are some lands that are leased. So just want the buyer to be aware that some properties located on the water are owned by the City of Alameda and leased to the owners. So if you are representing a buyer buying in the City of Alameda on a coastal property, you might be dealing with leased land. Okay? Alameda Point and proximity to former and current military ordnance location. This is something to let you know that in some places in Alameda, there might be former and current military ordnance. That means that there may be gunpowder or some explosives stored in these facilities, and the buyer needs to know about it. Okay. Industrial zone. Most Alameda properties located within 1 mile of an industrial zone. Okay. And such zones may create nuisances. So if you are buying in Alameda, just be aware of that. If you're close to industrial zone, the problem is the nuisance, all the smoke, the noise, things like that. Gas shutoff valves in the city of Alameda requires all buildings that have natural gas service shall have automatic gas shutoff valve installed if either of the following conditions exist. Property is being sold or the homeowner has been issued a permit for gas piping. So if you're selling a property in Alameda, you need to be aware that the gas needs to have automatic shutoff valve. Schools, if you want to know more about the school district, you can dial this number. Parking advisory. Parking vehicles both on and off street is governed by the city code and homeowners' rules and regulations. So if you're buying a property where there's not enough parking and you have to park some of the cars on the street, you need to be aware of the HOA rules regarding parking and the city and county rules regarding parking. Okay? Bedroom definitions. The number of bedrooms the property contains is subject to different and occasionally contradictory definitions. County tax records often indicate the number of bedrooms recorded in the county's tax assessor's office. Owners and residents of the property may describe a room as bedroom according to how the room is used and could be used. Where there is no statewide definition of a bedroom, California Building Code provides requirement for sleeping rooms. Discrepancies in the bedrooms can be a result of work performed by an owner without permits. So sometimes when you represent a buyer or represent a seller in dealing with a property where, they may tell you that we got an extra bedroom, but then because they built this thing without permit, so right now we don't know if it is in fact an additional bedroom, because usually in order for there to be a legal bedroom, there must be a closet to hang your clothes. Private sewer lateral. Alameda has a private sewer lateral requirement. Berkeley sidewalk area program. So again, in some cities like in Berkeley, if a homeowner wants to repair the sidewalk, they have financial assistance from the government to do sidewalk repairs. Berkeley Building Energy and Saving Ordinance, BESL, requires building owners and homeowners to complete comprehensive energy assessments to uncover energy saving opportunities. These assessments are conducted by a registered energy assessors who provide detailed recommendations on how to save energy and link building owners to incentive for energy efficiency upgrade project. Now, basically, this one says requires the homeowner to complete comprehensive energy assessments. So in Berkeley, it's required. So they make you do an assessment, energy assessment, in order to help the city save energy. That's what it is. So it's a point of sale requirement. So if you're selling a property in Berkeley, make sure you're aware of this requirement. If your property needs to get one of these inspection done, make sure you do it prior to putting the property on the market. But there are exemptions. So building 600 square feet or less than, 25,000 square feet and individually sold units within a larger building, such as attached condominiums. So these are just the exam. So there are some exemptions even with these requirements. And if you are selling in Livermore, a report of residential building records is required to be delivered to the buyer prior to the close of escrow. Need more information? Click this link. Oakland regulations. This one has to do with property ownership. These regulations, taxes, and fees may not apply to your particular property, but are provided as a convenience reference. This is not intended to be a complete list of Oakland regulations. So if you are selling units or properties within Oakland, there are some things you have to provide to the buyer. So make sure you come in here and check out the link. Okay, there's a lot of them. Piedmont City contains a house file for every Piedmont resident. While the city does not verify or guarantee the accuracy of the information contained in their files, buyers of any Piedmont residents are encouraged to review the entire file during the buyer's inspection contingency period, if any, to determine what existing work on the property was done with or without permits. So essentially, if you are dealing with a property in Piedmont, you are able to find out, to go to the city and find out which construction is permitted and which construction is not. Okay? And again, you know, the city of Piedmont has sidewalk inspection and repair requirement. Sources of information. Now, these additional sources of information, if you need it, okay? This is the same stuff that we covered the last time. Okay, that's it.